Rugby Hive presents coverage of the 2020 Olympic Games, the unofficial source for official information. I'm Dallen Stanford, former US Sevens player and current World Rugby commentator, together with Robin MacDowell, former Canadian Sevens star and international Sevens coach. And we are joined by World Rugby's leading point scorer, Ben Gollings, former England Sevens captain. How are we doing, gents?
Awesome, thanks. Good to be back on.
Doing well, fired up to kick off this Olympics. It's a year too late, but it's happening. That's all that matters.
All right, let's talk about, in this episode, the men's pools. These are 12 teams that are coming to the Olympic Games looking for glory, looking for gold. We're going to review each pool, expert analysis from Robin and Ben, and I'll throw in my 2 cents in some of the stats that these teams have come up with over the last 2 seasons, just to track their form as they head into the 2020 Tokyo Olympics in 2021. Is it confusing? Sometimes. Pool A, we've got New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, and Korea. So let's first look at New Zealand. My little notes here reveal that New Zealand have been fantastic in 2020, not so good in 2019. They had 2 golds, a silver, and 2 bronze medals. But in 2020, their most recent form, out of the 6 tournaments that were played, 3 golds, a silver, and a bronze. So that tees up their form coming into this event.
Yeah, we have Clark Laidlaw at the helm, Scotsman. They won the 2018 Sevens World Cup. Been in contact with Clark. I think the rich get richer as far as New Zealand rugby goes. The whole world was locked down. Everybody was in the same boat except for the Kiwis, and they've obviously just had full season. So their prime minister did a great job of managing, the global pandemic. They've been set up for success. They've obviously had Caleb Clark and a few other All Blacks 15s guys that made the transition. 2 15s, and they're coming back to sevens, which is exciting. They recently just lost out to Fiji in the Oceania, but they're on form. They've had lots of competition. They're definitely going to be medal contenders.
Yeah, no, they're a team. I mean, let's face it, they're always a number one side. You can never underestimate the All Blacks. They're a team that love to perform in big competitions, and arguably they probably would state they underperformed in 2016 at the Olympics. And Clark Laiglaw's taken a different angle. He's actually backed his core group of players, and somebody who'd be really excited about that jumps out to me is Kurt Baker. He was really disappointed he missed out in 2016, and rightly so, because he's a fun guy on and off the field, but he can change a game really quickly. And so, I'm happy for Kurt to see him playing, and they've got a fantastically well balanced squad. They're well prepared. They're always going to be one to beat.
Yeah, the Kiwis are certainly brilliant. Well, then their neighbours, Australia, find themselves in this pool as well. Australia have been fairly disappointing the last 2 years. If you just look at medals on the Sevens World Series, in 2019, they had just had 1 silver medal, and in 2020, they did finish 4th in the series, but a silver and a bronze.
Yeah, Australia, they've had an interesting journey. They're one of those sides being affected slightly by COVID. They're without much rugby, because obviously a lot of their players don't transition within 15s. It's mainly in the 7 squad. And so without games being played, they've been limited. However, it's a good time for them to look at new players. They have actually had that chance to throw some players into rugby here. And so it's good to see a few boys getting a run. Players to watch, Josh Cowan seems to be a young guy coming through who's looking at a bit of a playmaker. Also, I think the linchpin for them is Longbottom. If he's on the field, he's a guy that can make things happen. He can play off script. And so they're going to really want to see him fit and ready to play in this competition if they're to really hit the straps that we know Australia can do when they're on their form. So they're going to be a dogged side. I know they're going to play every minute of every game. That's what they look to do. They're a hard-working side. Tim Walsh, who's obviously an Olympic gold medalist head coach from the women's in 2016. He's got the experience. He knows what he's doing. So, I think watch this space with Australia. They're a bit of a dark horse.
All right, next up in Pool A are Argentina, Santiago Gomez Cora's troops. And the Argentines, while they have been very aggressive during the Sevens games and hard to compete against, haven't medaled much in the last couple of years.
Yeah, they're going to be another dark horse. I'm always, excited to watch them. They performed well in Spain earlier this year and were dominant in LA here recently. One player that's really impressed me, I think he's one of the top flyers and just a young, exciting player, is that Marcus Moneta on the wing. He's carved up everybody this year and will be definitely a player to watch. Much like the Aussies, to Ben's point, the Argies are world renowned for just being workhorses, and then they're just really solution oriented as a culture. And one example of that is the Pumas when they traveled over to the other side of the southern hemisphere last year in 15s. and laid some stunners on the All Blacks and on the Wallabies with their performance. They basically trained at home and did Zoom workouts, but culturally the coaches were able to keep them together. So Santi's got a good grasp of his boys down there, and they have had some competition, so they'll be a dark horse in that pool.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, really, I mean, they're a team that on their merit can play up and play anybody, and they're again a banana skin team in this group for any team that's going to be coming up against them. And I think they've had the opportunity to develop their squad a little bit during this period where we all know there's been this off break. So I'm excited to see. I trained with them once in Hong Kong for a while, and they're a good group of guys. They're smart footballers, and they can put it together on a sevens field.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you guys. And then the fourth team rounding out that pool is Korea. Last time we saw them was in Los Angeles, actually last year. They came along and got some valuable experience ahead of the Olympics.
Yeah, well, I mean, what a fantastic, opportunity and result for Korea getting into the Olympics. The big thing they did was they knocked off Hong Kong, who, with Japan out of the competition, having already qualified, we'll talk about them later, it meant that it was a big opportunity for Hong Kong, and they've been pushing for it. But big surprise, South Korea went and won the qualifier. So, fantastic for them. They're another team. They're a big, strong group of players, and they can play. I always found when you play teams like that you've just got to be on your guard, because they just appear from nowhere, and because they're slightly unstructured with what they do. So, I'm not going to say they're going to win this pool. I think they've got 3 big games in front of them, but the fact that they've got to the Olympics is fantastic for Asia rugby as well as South Korea, and I'm excited to see how they do.
Yeah, certainly that is true. And then Pool B, we head across to the big times. Fiji champions in the Sevens World Series in 2019. They won on the podium 5 times, winning gold, 1 silver, 1 bronze. 2020, they dropped down to 3rd place, but we know it was a shortened season with 6 events. They were on the winners' medal 2 times, winning gold and silver. Everyone's favorite team.
Yeah, obviously, like you said, defending champs. Osea Kalinasau is in the MLR, so they don't have their, the returning captain, but they have lots of leadership in Jerry Tuai and lots of returning players as well. The interesting piece is going to be, the kind of training in the shadows in Fiji. And Ben had a good point. There's a lot of domestic competition there. The culture is so rich within them. We know they're going to be prepared and confident, but the new direction that the stories will come out after the Olympics is just Gareth Barber's, his direction versus Ben Ryan, of course, who helped them win gold the last round, and just see like what changes they made, but can't count them out. You would have thought that New Zealand, with their preparation, would have had a leg over them in the Oceania a couple of weeks ago, but Fiji can beat anybody any day, and will definitely be in the medal contention, and just so excited to see those guys back on the field.
Yeah, I think the highlight for me was watching them play just recently in Oceania, having obviously missed seeing the flair of the Sevens with Fiji for a while. They turned up. They were a little bit rusty in their first few games, but they pulled it together and showed that they're kind of going to start here where they finished off in the series. So I wouldn't say they're underprepared. I think they're probably red hot.
Yeah, always a thrill to watch them, as we said. So they will be up against Great Britain, who did superbly in 2016. Great Britain, of course, predominantly the English team. So if we track them on the series, England came 5th in 2019, 5th again in 2020, medaled 4 times in the bronze medal, but have a lot of dangerous players.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been an interesting journey since England went and qualified Great Britain in the qualification grounds in Europe. There's really been no rugby for them, and sadly, as we saw in the press, their whole team was put aside by the RFU and no longer existed, which was a big blow to those players, and I think left them in a bit of a wilderness for a while. But what's been great, and it's a great story, and I know if they medal here, it'll be a big story, the fact that they regathered themselves, and they've been working hard behind the scenes individually in lockdowns, but then they've come together pretty late on. This Great Britain team has really only come together, I think, maybe February of this year, and started to prepare. They've got a great coach in Tony Rokes, who's an ex-England player, but he's been around now, and he was working with Mike Friday in the USA team up until the last series. So they've got a story behind them. They can use it. They can drive with it. But ultimately, they're a class side. They've got a great player in Tom Mitchell heading them up. They've got the likes of a Dan Norton, who we know are a real threat. and they've got a good combination with the English and the Scottish players. There's actually not a Welsh player that unfortunately missed out in this round, but I think they know it's a tough competition. But the GB, they'll be ready, and they'll be wanting to probably go one better than they did last time in 2016.
The next big one, and a special one indeed, it's Canada. Robin's Canada are in this pool as well. They're a side that have threatened of the Sevens World Series in 2020, one bronze medal. Not much to show in 2019, but still lots to play for, Robs.
Yeah, really excited. Obviously, massively biased as an alumni and as a Canadian. But I tell you what, they've got lots of experience. I think it's the most balanced team Canada's ever fielded for any competition. Although there's been a lack of World Series and lack of competitions domestically in Canada with the pandemic, a lot of guys are healed. A lot of guys are ready. A lot of guys are hungry, and they're probably closer as a side they've ever been. We're going to look at a number of these guys, obviously across the board with pinnacle events, but Canada has probably half a dozen guys that this will be their last competition together as they move on to the next stage in their life, and they're looking to leave it on the field. So really excited about their prep. But the only competition they really had was in Dubai, and they used that as a selection tool. So they weren't necessarily playing to win as much as they're playing to get guys on the field and manage bodies. Players to look for, obviously, Harry and Harry Jones and Nathan Hirayama. Hirayama's been there since 2006, back in my playing days, our playing days, I guess. The guy is still on form, which is beautiful. And I'm just really thankful that, injury wise, that he's able to follow through on that. And then out wide, one thing Canada's never had is depth in it with their pace. And, outside of Justin Douglas, who's box office, we have Theo Sauter, Mr. Teddy, that, is very elusive, similar to a young DTH. So look for those two to finishing for Canada. And, different look with Henry Paul. He's been grinded. Obviously, Ben, you're tight with HP as a player and as a coach. And, he's the only guy that Pat Kay's ever said I think loves rugby more than you. So that guy's been grinding in Southern Vancouver Island over the last, 18 months in preparation.
Brilliant. Yep. The strong Canadian side, and always putting pressure on the top teams as well. And Japan is the fourth side that comes out to round this out. And they certainly threatened as well. Of course, they're not close to medal contention, but they have the ability to beat any side. And that's what the Olympics is all about.
Yeah, I mean, what a spectacle they created in 2016, suddenly turning up to the Olympics and hitting a semi-final and causing a lot of issues for teams along the way. Officially don't know too many of the players and names, but I know that they're a very professional outfit, Japan. They always have been. They take their rugby seriously. I think there's been plenty of play for them because they've had the Japanese leagues being played right now. So there'll be a team that come in here as the top dogs in Asia and want to make a statement. And I think they'll be well prepared. And they'll be a side that will be tough to beat. They'll give everybody a run for their money, and they won't give up on anyone.
And I wanted to say, just with them hosting, it's not ideal preparation. Typically, teams are on the ground a week or two early for the Olympics. Typically, teams for pinnacle events, World Cups, 15s or 7s, are on the ground a few times throughout the year to get the lay of the land physically and mentally. It's very humid right there. It's very hot. And I think that's an advantage for Japan. They obviously don't have to travel. They're from there. So, they're climatized, the food, the language, and as we say in Canada, home ice advantage. Sometimes, the home ice advantage doesn't really matter as far as the location goes, outside of having the fans behind you. But I think in this case, with the short turnaround for a lot of countries, they're the one that slays the dragon. So we'll be excited to watch Japan again.
Yeah, very good points indeed. I never heard the home mice. I mean, do you have a lot of problem with mice there? Do you leave little bits of cheese lying around, Robs?
Home ice. It's my Afrikaans getting in the way.
There it is. Good. All right, let's crack on. Pool C, the final pool here. We have South Africa, USA, Kenya, and Ireland. They never get easy. And let's tee up South Africa first. So I'll take it here for a little bit. South Africa 2019 finished fourth in the series with 2 golds and 2 bronze. in 2020, second, 2 golds and 2 silvers. They're a side that is hardened, battle ready as always. Their selections were pretty interesting. They left out a lot of their players that have shone for them in the Sevens World Series, particularly players like Van der Kok, Dylan Sage, Roscoe Speckman, and the great Sibella Sanatla. Those players are pursuing 15s careers. Some of them involved in the British and Irish Lions tour now to South Africa as well. So pretty fascinating to see those players not included in the Olympic Games, because you think that's something that they would want to aim for. But South Africa, one of the best defensive teams in the world, they will certainly be up for the task. They've got a really nice balanced side. You guys were talking about balanced teams in that they've got some really fleet-footed backline players, some fast wingers on the outside, and some abrasive forwards that you need to win the ball, the contact. And they've played some competition in South Africa, so at least had a little bit of a go before this Olympic Games. What are you guys' thoughts?
I think it talks hugely to the fact that if you're missing out guys like that, you know that there's good guys coming through. I think it's one of been the staples for South Africa over the years is they've always had such depth in their squad. They run a fantastic program. And so, you know, obviously with COVID, certain players have decided to take a different journey, a different path, but it's opened the door for probably equally as good of players. And I think, you know, in terms of a team that's going to burst onto the scene, having been very quiet throughout this period, is South Africa. And I'm for one quite excited because they're always a team that are capable of winning tournaments and medaling. And, you know, for me, they'll be a front runner right up there.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. They will take on the USA next up in that pool. The US Eagles, they've had a tremendous form in 2019, finishing second, the best ever under Mike Friday's charges. They made 10 semifinals in a row, the most consistent side. They ended up winning just the 1 gold medal, but then they still had 4 silvers and a couple of bronze, much better than they did in previous years. You know, in 2020, they fell off the pace a little bit, but a couple of injuries have had them. So good news is Captain Madison Hughes is back. Folau Naiua is there as well, the playmaker and just brilliant kicker, the general as is known. And then Perry Baker as well. Perry Baker had a bad injury and he's finally come back as well. And with him and Colin Isles rotating out, they've got some really good forwards as well. One of them is missing out, and that's Ben Pinkelman. He's really the heart of the side, so it's really sad to see him withdraw himself after being selected. A bad back injury has finally kept him out. But they've still got the likes of a Danny Barrett, Stephen Thomasine, a handful of players that have now been around 30 to 50 tournaments, and they are raring to go. They had a very disappointing 2016 run. So I think the Eagles, I'm obviously biased like Robin is for Canada, but I think the Eagles could have a really good showing this one and really help rugby in America as well.
Yeah, just talking to Mike Friday, obviously he's done everything possible as a coach to get those guys competition. You know, they've been in the UK, they've been to Spain, they've hosted tournaments, they've hosted other teams at their national training center in Chula Vista. That guy's, you know, one of the hardest working guys out there as well. So the dog will be on the bone for sure for the USA. Looking forward to supporting them when they're not playing Canada.
Yeah, I think I'd just add that, you know, they were an on-form team in the World Series. And so the other thing there is if they can take that form in and they can back up performances, they're a team that know how to play and play in finals, which is really important in this game. But if they were to medal, what it would do for rugby in the USA, we know how big the Olympics is. So, you know, this is a fantastic opportunity for them to go the whole way and make a real big statement on the world scene with rugby.
One thing I was going to say is just when they were missing Madison and Folau, like it made a big difference. You just can't replace that kind of experience. And when they're on form and winning tournaments and finishing the top 2-3 in the world, those guys were leading the way. So the interesting thing is they're both coming back from close to catastrophic career-ending injuries, and they battled back, which is amazing. I said to Mike, they're fresh at least, and sometimes fresh is better than on form as far as getting through those tournaments and like we were saying with the travel. So I'm excited to see those two generals back in the mix.
And for Folau in particular, it was lucky that the Olympics was postponed because he wouldn't have made it if it was in the year 2020. So interesting storyline there as well as you follow. They're up against a big warhorse, Kenya, who are, while they might not have medaled in recent times, they really have brought the heat in this last season. You've seen it against some of the big teams, and they've almost knocked out some of the large sides. They don't shy away from the contact.
Yeah, outside of Fiji, they're always the fan favorites, right? Nobody parties harder in the stands and sings louder than the lovely Kenyans. And Collins Injera, you know, I think it's his 30th or 50th tournament, 50th season, I should say. And yeah, they're one of those teams again that play to their strengths, which is powerful and upfront. So looking forward to watching Kenya perform.
I think for Kenya, they're going back-to-back Olympics. So they're a side that have got experience. And, you know, the likes of Gollings and Gira provides a lot of experience and still going. What a fantastic guy. And their captain with Andrew Amonde, who's, you know, he's a mountain of a guy there with William Baka. These are players that can really cause upsets for opposition. And, you know, Kenya, again, are a team that you can't ever rest or relax on. And so in this pool, they're going to be one to watch in terms of one that could make a real big upset.
And then the final side is Ireland, who have been thrilling fans and so great to see the Irish at the Olympic Games. How do you guys place this side?
I think it's fantastic. Ireland have really focused on their sevens program. And they said, you know, well, they targeted this Olympics. And so far, it's worked out perfectly for them. They got their opportunities on the World Series and they just grew from strength to strength. And then for me, I think they've had what would be argued one of the best preparations because of their qualification in Monaco that they went on and won. They've been involved in the game and it hasn't stopped for them this whole period of time. And to have had that competition right before the Olympics, I think they'd argue is one of the best preparations they could have had. It's a proper hit out, it's proper sevens under that pressure cooker environment, which that qualifier is. I mean, you know, it's devastating if you end up losing. So they're a team. You've got Jordan Conroy on the wing, who's proven to be one of the best wingers on the Seventh Circuit. He's pushing all the old boys in that regard. They've got a great balance and some great pairings. So I think it's fantastic they're here. And they're a team that, for me, they could medal having only just qualified. They've got the opportunity and the ability.
Well, what's special for them is if they, you know, they've started out together. The core of this team has been there from probably the first practice 4 or 5 years ago. Seeing them in 2018 in Hong Kong, just missing out on winning the Hong Kong Sevens to be a World Series team, and then in 2019 actually qualifying and doing it together. So it's been a Cinderella story for them, and they've had the same squad, and they have that belief, and they've done it all themselves. So they are the pioneers. And to Ben's point, they're riding high. They're riding the wave right now of just slaying a dragon, and they're coming in hot with full of confidence, and they play for each other. They got lots of exciting players. For me, I won't be surprised if they medal as well.
All right, gentlemen, that now brings us to the end of those 12 teams, which means I'm going to ask each of you to choose 2 teams from each pool that are guaranteed to go through, in your opinion. So, Ben, let's start with you. Pool A, we had New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, and Korea. Which 2 sides are you picking?
I'm going to go with New Zealand and Argentina in that group.
Robin?
Yeah, I'll go New Zealand and Australia.
New Zealand, Argentina as well. So that would be pretty interesting. Okay, good. Let's move on. Pool B, Fiji, Great Britain, Canada, and Japan.
I can't go past the top 2 in this pool, Fiji and Great Britain.
I'm going to go Canada and Fiji.
Oh, you're almost fighting Ben there, but I know that's generally
Side
what
bets.
Could happen. That's what you feel. Okay. Unpopular decision. I'm also going to go Great Britain and our favorite Fijians as well. I would choose Canada as the 3rd team to come through because you got your 2 best placed 3rd teams as well. So at least still friends with you there, Robs. All right. Pool C, South Africa, USA, Kenya, and Ireland.
Can I pick all 4? I got a number of combinations. I think I'll back South Africa to get a job done as one of the teams. And at this stage, I'm going to go Ireland.
I'm going to go USA and Ireland.
Wow. Both intriguing options. But as you said, there are, for me, I don't see Kenya coming through, but I do see South Africa, USA, or Ireland. But I'm going to go with my 2 countries being from South Africa and the USA. So those 2. We said we allowed now 2 countries that you hadn't picked before could go as the best 3rd place sides. One of my picks was Canada. Ben, what are your 2 picks?
Honestly speaking, I think they could probably come out of that last pool C. So either a USA, a Kenya, or an Ireland would be a team that I think would qualify in there. And I think the other one would be an Australia that I didn't pick in that Pool A side would probably get in through a best runner-up as well if they don't qualify straight through.
Did you just pick 4 teams, or did you pick 2 teams?
No, I picked 2 spaces.
Okay. I'm gonna pick Argentina and South Africa to come in the backside.
Oh, that's right. Okay, because you never picked them in the beginning. Okay, wow, those are 2 strong sides there. I had Canada as one of my sides, and I think I'll go Ireland as the other side to come through there. So not bad at all. Gentlemen, any other comments?
I'm just we're all ready to let it play out and rock and roll. I think we always make statements, but we're always here to be proven wrong, and I think we'll be proven wrong on a number of occasions throughout this Olympic Games.
Well, just one thing Ben and I were talking about earlier today is just obviously there's only 12 teams, and we talked about it in the intro a few weeks ago, but most World Series competitions have 16 teams, 4 pools. And obviously Hong Kong typically has 24. So you got to show up. Day 1 is day 2 or day 3, right? You got to come to play every single game. And so that's the exciting thing about the Olympics. And I just, want to congratulate all the teams and all the coaches and staff and athletes and families for those getting selected. From a Canadian and North American side, to have, the men and women, both Canada and the US going is massive for our sport, to grow our sport in this part of the world. And for the Canadian men, I was on the field after losing to the USA with Mexico for the last Olympics, and then watching the USA shatter Canada's hearts. So to have both countries going is epic, and just really thrilled for those boys to get to live their dream, and then again use that to inspire these Canadian kids and kids around the world.
Awesome. For Ben Gollings, Robin MacDowell, I'm Dallen Stanford. Thanks for joining us as always. Follow us on the socials at Rugby Hive on Twitter and Facebook, at My Rugby Hive on Insta. Buy some rugby merch at the World Rugby Shop. Plus check out our podcast at rugbyhive.com. Be safe out there. Till next time. Cheers, you sleek sensations.